Welcome to Malpractice Podcast.
Damn it. Okay, got it now.
Off to a great start.
Are you ready to get started?
Super ready to get started. I have never binged as much content to prep for an episode, I don't think, as I did for this one.
Oh yeah, we in this now.
Truly, shit's wild. Okay.
This is crazy, yeah.
It is crazy. Number one. Number two, how are you?
Super good, super sunburned.
Yeah, you look sunburned. You look pink.
Right? Prior to like 2 years or so ago, I didn't really care about sunscreen, which is stupid.
That's wild, yeah.
I really care about it now. So I applied sunscreen probably every 40 minutes.
Cautious, yeah.
And I'm still sunburned.
When I realized that the sun would give you wrinkles faster, I was like, bitch, I need everything with SPF in it.
Yeah, literally.
Do not let me wrinkle.
Oh my God, I forgot to tell you this. So we're going to the valley. So we're coming back last night and we pull off to this exit to get gas. And swear to God, I can't believe I didn't tell you this earlier because, spoiler alert, Sydney and I had a very long conversation today on the phone, which we should have recorded per the usual. But a large cat of the, like, mountain lion persuasion darted across the road.
No way.
It was so big.
When you said large cat, I was thinking a big house cat.
And it was so large that I thought it was a Great Dane.
Nuh-uh.
Yes, Sydney.
No.
Yes. And then we looked up.
I don't accept it.
I swear to God. So I was driving. So I don't know why I saw less of this cat than Michelle did. But, like, I did not get a good look at the cat, even though it came out in front of the road.
Yeah.
And then Michelle was like, no, it was tan. It has short ears. And it wasn't running like a dog. It was running like a fucking cat.
Leaping like a cat. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh.
Like cats run. And I was like, oh, hell.
That's a mountain lion for sure.
That is my fear.
It is your fear. Well, tigers specifically.
Tigers, but large cats. And then Michelle kept saying jungle cat. I'm like, stop saying jungle cat.
Don't say jungle cat.
Because that is so scary to me. But it was a big...
I don't know why the phrase jungle cat makes it so much worse.
It makes it worse.
But it does. Because here's what I'm scared of.
Yeah.
In order. Tigers, lions, bears. Moose. That's like my top 4.
Probably then mountain lions.
Mountain lions got to be in there.
I mean, because mountain lions do attack.
Oh, they attacked that guy and he like wrestled it. He wrestled it.
Well, have you seen that video? It resurfaced recently of this guy walking backwards and the mountain lion is like coming at him.
No.
On a trail.
No.
Like on the paved road.
No.
This is why I don't believe in the outdoors.
I do believe in the outdoors. I do be out there camping. However...
You do believe. You be out there in the camping.
I feel like all it would take is one mountain lion sighting for me to be like, I'm never going outside again.
A simple sighting. What kills me is people who post videos of like a grizzly bear getting in their home. Bitch, what?
What were you doing filming? That's my question.
What? Thank you. Why are you not dead? I would just instant
Put your
death.
fucking phone
I would
down
just faint.
and defend yourself from this bear in your home, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Oh my God. People will just do stupid shit for the gram. And I'm like, number one, if a bear comes in your house and your first instinct is, I better get this for my social media, reevaluate your life.
Your whole entire life needs to be
reevaluate
checked.
it, because my first grab would be for the biggest knife I have.
Oh, yeah.
It's bear defending time. I gotta fight a bear now.
I have to fight. First of all, I can't think of anything I'd like to do less than that, besides fighting a tiger.
No. You know what? One time we were looking up these statistics, and it was like, yeah, if a bear is chasing you, you should try to run uphill because they're really bad at running uphill. I was like, bitch, I'm bad at running uphill.
Yeah, also that's most people's biggest weaknesses.
Yeah.
Like, most people don't train for, like, bear protective running.
Do you know how fast a bear can run?
Nope. I don't want to know.
I'm going to tell you. Do you want to know?
No, yes.
It's 32 miles per hour.
Right.
That is faster than the speed limit in my residential neighborhood.
So why would somebody think that you would be running faster? Why would somebody give the advice to run uphill if you can't even run faster than the bear in the first place?
Correct.
Can't even get to the point of running uphill.
Tell me what to do that I can do in a stationary pose.
Right.
Do I yell at the bear?
Do you?
Do I curl up into a ball and just die?
Yes.
Tell me one of those things.
That
Tell me
one.
which one to do for which type of bear. Because apparently, what I've always heard is that if it's a black bear, you try to scare it away. And if it's a brown bear, you lay down. Those are not true. That is a fucking myth.
What do you do, actually?
They said you have to tell the bear's behavior. And if the bear is like aggressive in a certain way, then you try to scare it away. If it's aggressive, like it's going to eat you, then I think you fight it.
If it's aggressive, first of all, in a certain kind of way, I'm not in the headspace of analyzing bear behavior.
That's my problem. That's my problem with the whole thing.
Yeah, correct.
Here's my thing, though. Have you seen the movie The Revenant?
No, that sounds like... Is it about bear fighting?
Yes. Well, no, but there's a bear fight scene. Have you ever seen a bear fight like a salmon?
Yes.
That's me versus
Yeah.
the bear. That's
Bingo.
me versus that bear. I'm the salmon in the mouth, dead or dying. Bitten in half.
Bingo, correct. Oh, it is a bear. You lost. A bear beat the shit out of you.
Period.
That bear will eat you and your family all the days.
For like a snack.
It'll move into your house and drive your car. It is a bear.
It'll take over your mortgage payments. That bear doesn't give a fuck.
Right. It will get you fired and replace you. It is a bear.
Yeah,
no one's telling a bear no.
The bear is better than you, period. Move on.
I do not like the outside. I stay inside. I am scared. I am really scared, and I'm like irrationally scared of like like sharks attacking me. Like I am really scared of that
I get
shit.
it. I feel like a shark attack, so rare. That did not reassure you, did it?
No. Well, I mean, all of this is quote unquote rare until it happens to you.
I heard a statistic, though, that you're more likely to die from a falling refrigerator than you are from a shark attack.
I'm scared of refrigerators, too. I don't know what you want me to say.
You just want me to be afraid
Just
of
add
everything?
it to my list of fears. It didn't make the shark thing less scary.
Just made refrigerators more scary.
Yeah, now I'm terrified of refrigerators.
Also, I don't think we said this. My name is Sydney.
Damn. And I'm Jess, and we be forgetting our names.
We forget to include our names, and also, this is Malpractice Podcast, a podcast about bears and
Possible murders.
medical malpractice.
Basketball practice. Yeah.
You want to do this? You want to get into this?
I do.
Shit's wild. Let's go.
Is he a serial killer?
I mean, we'll get into it, but I think I've come around to your side.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, today we are double trouble tackling the life and trial of William, I think it's Husel, like do the.
Husel.
Oh. I've been saying it like hustle and then
Husel? Husel?
That's what I've
Honestly,
been doing.
I'm okay with hustle.
Question of the day, what happened here / are you a serial killer?
Yeah. So if you haven't seen anything about this in the news, which honestly would be a little surprising at this point, William Scott Husel. Are we going with Husel?
I'm down to clown.
Okay. I've only read it. I haven't heard anyone say it. I'm going with Husel. Is an American intensive care doctor who is currently on trial as an accused serial killer.
Dun, dun, dun.
Right.
I just wanted to do that.
No, it's perfect. The prosecution is alleging that he murdered at least 14 people. Some people say anywhere between 25 and 35, but he is now only being charged with 14 between February of 2015 and November of 2018. And he did this allegedly by fentanyl overdoses at 2 hospitals in Ohio.
Yeah.
This is one of the largest murder cases in Ohio state history. This is also a hot take because the jury is literally still out on this one. So the jurors began deliberating April 12th. And as of right now, we're recording on Monday the 18th. They are still in the middle of deliberating.
They're living my dream.
I know.
They are literally living my dream.
I sent Jessica this meme that was like, it's so funny that the government can call you and be like, hey, bestie, need you to solve a murder. Here's $12.
Period. I do it in a heartbeat.
Wants to be on a jury so bad. So as of today, they were deadlocked at lunch still. And in case you didn't know, a deadlocked jury can turn into a hung jury, which would likely cause this to be retried, which is, again, crazy. The judge at noon today, I was like watching this live when they took the lunch break today.
Yeah.
So at noon, the judge essentially said, I want you guys to go talk about this more and basically try to figure out one way or another whether he's guilty or not.
I think that would mean the judge believes there's enough evidence for them to make a decision one way or another.
I think you're right, yeah.
Do the Husel is his name. And he was born November 11th, 1975. And he was raised in Cleveland, Ohio. He attended St.
Ignatius.
What? Ignatius. Okay. Well, obviously I am not Catholic. High school and played basketball. He was the captain his senior year, which is a fun fact. I don't know if anyone cares, but I found that fact. He graduated in 1994, which makes me feel like very young.
Same.
And he started college at Wheeling Jesuit College. Actually, there's an incident where he made a pipe bomb. He made a pipe bomb, and then he tried to frame another student for making the pipe bomb by planting bomb-making materials in his car. And then he left the bomb in a trash can, ? We're questioning his decision-making. And he was charged...
I have so many questions.
Right, with malicious damage by means of explosive device, possession of unregistered, because he made it himself, explosive, and then unlawful making of an explosive device. And all of that put together. And he got 6 months in a community confinement center and 1 year of supervision.
So I have a question. What even is that? Because how can you make a bomb and get 6 months community service? Also, question number 2, how, I need to know this, does making and planting a pipe bomb not eliminate you from getting into med school?
Yeah, you got off real easy there, sir. You probably should have relaxed for several seconds.
I just want to know the person on the admissions staff who was like, well, everybody deserves a second chance, even pipe bomb makers.
Well, it's just a crazy thing to do.
There's a lot of malicious intent.
So he's a criminal. He went on to Ohio State University. He got a degree in microbiology in 2000. And then he went to medical school at the same place, the College of Osteopathic Medicine at Ohio State. Or I think that's Ohio University. That's probably different. They might come for my life.
People in Ohio are very serious about their rivalries.
Yeah, okay, so it says Ohio University College of Osteopathic Medicine. Okay, don't come for me.
You don't fuck around with Ohio.
Apparently not. And Michigan's the same way, so I get it.
Yeah.
After graduation, he interned at Cleveland Clinic, where he took on the vibe of this cool, cute, muscular doctor guy. Everyone was like, oh, he's cute. Oh, he's smart. Oh, he's the best. Oh, he's a pipe bomb maker.
No one said that last part, and they should have.
They should have said that. He began his official work as an intensive care doctor at Mount Carmel, which is probably the best name. West, I love Carmel. Hospital in Columbus, Ohio. And everyone was like, okay, this guy is super hot, he's smart, he's nice, he's awesome. They loved him. And he was living the dream. I think he got an award, right? Doctor of the Year there at Cleveland Clinic. Yeah.
And then later the prosecution is like, I don't care if you are the Doctor of the Year.
Oh, really?
So funny, yeah. Throw so much shade at him, and I love it.
So he's the Doctor of the Year, and then...
Yeah, so this is where the murders start, and we take back, he's not living the dream, so we're going to get into those charges.
He might be living his own dream.
Honestly, that's a very legitimate point. So now we're going to talk about the accusations and the charges he's facing. He is accused of prescribing fentanyl to the point of killing people, what the prosecutor called doses that were, quote, wildly excessive. So what is fentanyl? If for some reason you've been living under a rock and you have no idea what we're talking about, we actually talked about fentanyl a lot during the opioid epidemic episodes in season 1. Fentanyl is a powerful synthetic opioid that is used in cases of severe pain and often in end-of-life care, but it can also be abused as it is a Schedule II drug. So it's between 50 and 100 times stronger than morphine, and experts say that in medical settings it should be, quote, prescribed carefully and only in response to a patient's symptoms.
So, don't willy-nilly around with fentanyl.
Exactly.
So I looked up, what happens to you when you OD on fentanyl, because I didn't know.
Yeah.
It's essentially like slowly putting you to sleep is what it feels like.
Mm-hmm.
There may be like confusion on the part of the person that's ingesting the drug. Like your body is not able to transmit signals for life functions like breathing. So you essentially like stop breathing at an overdose. It also like shuts off the receptors of pain. So
Right.
you're not feeling like anything. It can essentially just cause people to like fall asleep.
Mm-hmm.
They may have like slurred speaking and uncoordinated walking. If they're trying to walk, they might feel faint or dizzy, but otherwise like there's no reaction per se.
Okay. That's really good to know because I didn't know really what it looked like.
Yeah. That's what it looks like in an overdose.
Okay. That's really interesting to know. I'm glad you looked that up. So now what is happening? Basically at this point, Husel has pled not guilty to all 14 counts that he is currently being charged with. It seems like the prosecution started off the trial by offering him just flat out 30 years in prison in order to avoid the trial, which, since we're covering the trial, he obviously didn't accept.
If they're offering you 30 years, they have stuff on you. They have shit on you, friend. Like, you is caught, signed, sealed, delivered. 30 years is not a joke.
No, and he faces up to, if he gets charged with like intentional homicide, he could face up to, I think it's 15 to 25 years per count, and he's facing 14 counts. So 30 years would have been like, let's avoid the public hubbub, and you just agree to go to jail for a really long time.
And he was like, no.
He was like, no, I'm good. The Mount Carmel Health System said that the hospital where he worked got a report that Husel was doing something wrong as early as October of 2018. So this is great. So someone, it seems like a pharmacist from what I was reading, basically he was placing these orders to the pharmacy for super high doses of fentanyl. And then a pharmacist, I think, reported him and essentially said, something is big time funky over here. Something's going on. He said they were requesting so much fentanyl that he thought someone had to be stealing the drugs.
Oh, so that's what they probably thought.
That was the initial report.
Reporting.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We've also, through doing these episodes, we've learned that those whistleblowers are often like the bravest people, and they usually end up being the reason that cases like this and lots of medical serial killers end up getting caught, is typically the whistleblowers are the ones who kind of help solve it. So
Absolutely.
right.
And so now the hospital like has that report. So from October to November of 2018, the hospital received 3 formal complaints related to Do the Husel's care.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really not going to be able to not say it like that.
It's okay with me.
Between the time they got the first complaint and the time he was removed, 3 more patients had actually died who were in his care.
Yeah.
It's like, at what point is there a Mayday, Mayday moment? Like, when do we throw the flag?
Right.
I think like 2.
Mm-hmm.
2 seems like a lot of people to die from the same thing under one person's care.
Right. 2.
Like, to me, it's 2.
2 does feel like a lot. He goes on to rack up a total of potentially 35 people, which feels out of control. That feels out of control to me.
Yeah, it's wild.
Yeah.
So after doing some investigating, the hospital found that one person, victim, Rebecca Walls, had passed away with an unusually high dose of fentanyl in her system. So one day later, while they're still investigating, another patient of Dr. Do the Husel, Melissa Penix, is declared dead of a lethal fentanyl overdose that she was given 20 vials at once.
Yeah.
20 vials, bitch?
Right.
That's crazy.
My question is, like, someone drew these vials into a syringe one at a time
Yep.
and did 20 of them.
Yep.
Were they thinking, like, this is a good idea? Because 20 of anything
Yes.
seems like a lot of vials. Even if it was, like, a very basic dose, like, if it was, shit, I don't know, like, whatever they give you normally, a bag of saline,
Yes, I
if you
agree.
needed 20 of them, I'd be
I
like,
agree.
something is wrong.
I agree.
Okay.
I've just like seen vials injected into people, and it is a real situation.
Yeah. They're like this big,
Yes.
and someone had to draw that up into a syringe and inject 20 of them into a person.
So after this, they immediately remove him from patient care duties in November of 2018.
Yeah.
In that small period, 3 people died and they received potentially fatal doses of fentanyl from Do the Hustle.
Allegedly.
Allegedly, but that's what the hospital said.
Correct.
And they also said that at least 35 people were affected by Husel, and it's probably more, right? I believe it's probably more.
I have to think it's more because if they caught 35 and they're saying 35 publicly, you bet it's more, right?
I do.
I also want to note, while we're talking about somebody doing the injecting, it was Husel who prescribed the medication, but he was not always the one giving it directly to the patients. He's the one saying, something's wrong, give this patient something, right?
Yeah.
And he's the one writing the prescriptions.
And he's saying what to give them.
Right. But it's often a nurse injecting it and a pharmacist filling the prescription. So he didn't do this in an isolated bubble.
Right. So people had opportunity to intersect with this problem.
Right. Which is where I have some of the issue is like there's obvious oversight problems in this hospital if you're able to do that and no one triggers a red flag the first time it happens.
Yeah.
So another note, many of these patients received super high doses of fentanyl as they were being removed from life support. So we said that he was an ICU doctor. He is dealing with like the sickest of the sick people, a lot of whom are in the middle of being taken off of life support, or when they intubate you is when they essentially attach the breathing apparatus to your body.
Mm-hmm.
When they take that out, it's called extubating. So they're taking out the intubation. And that's sort of the kind of end of life protocol is like, as you're dying, they're taking you off life support, they're extubating you. So during the trial, Husel's defense team will continue to argue that he prescribed these drugs in order to provide palliative, comforting, like end-of-life care to people on their deathbeds in order to prevent them from suffering. So in some ways, this reminds me of our episode on Dr. Kevorkian in season 1.
Yeah.
And I'm having like flashbacks, except in those cases, it was physician-assisted suicide. This is kind of like that, except minus the consent, also not a suicide, and it's not assisted. He just did it.
Yeah.
So it's murder, essentially, is what I'm saying.
Even, and we talked about this earlier, even if these people were dying, like even if that's true, it still doesn't give him the right to murder them.
Exactly. And I think the prosecutor who's trying this case, his name is David Zayen, and he basically said, it's still murder to kill a dying person.
Right.
And that's 100% true, because at what point do you get to decide when it's someone's time to die, right? You don't.
Agreed with that quote.
Yeah.
So 28 of these patients received an excessive and possibly fatal dose of fentanyl on Husel's direction. So the issue is that the dosage is beyond providing comfort to the point of causing death. That is like the language. It's beyond providing comfort, and it's to the point of causing death.
Exactly.
And 6 of the 34 died, but their cause of death could not be attributed directly to the fentanyl dosage, so the charges were dropped.
Right.
Which honestly is a shame, because it is so likely that because he was prescribing fentanyl on top of all of these other drugs that these patients were already receiving, so it's very possible that a reaction also triggered their death.
Yeah.
But we just can't say it was exactly that.
Yeah, and it's hard too, because I was reading about a couple of the victims specifically, and it's like he injected something and he injected fentanyl, and then a few minutes later that person was dead.
Yeah.
So part of the prosecution's strategy has been saying like, even if it didn't directly kill them, it hastened their death.
So there's that.
So
okay, defense attorney Jose Baez said he dedicated his life to taking care of the ill, to saving lives, not to taking them. To sit here and accuse him is absolutely absurd. That's what he said.
Yeah.
I'm not accusing you. I'm just pointing to all the facts and saying,
yeah,
this is what happened.
The other thing is, so Baez, the defense attorney, is naming in the trial, he names all these instances where Husel saved patients. And it's well, number one, that's your job. So jot that down. And number two, he's why would he save these people if he was then going to kill them? I think medical serial killers, number one, get off on that.
That's the exactly. If we've learned anything from Bruce Sackman, that is what we've learned.
They have that like angel of death thing.
Yes.
It's like firefighters who set a fire because they want to put it out. Like that's a thing, right? That's what you're telling me is MO.
You're literally giving me all of the ammunition.
Right. So, Husel was formally fired on December 5th, 2018, after the investigation revealed that he had ordered fatal doses of fentanyl. Following that, the investigation really kicks up. The same day they fired him, the Mount Carmel Hospital contacted the state medical board and the Franklin County prosecutor, Ron O'Brien, who said during their initial conversations that a doctor, later identified as Husel, was, quote, administering doses of fentanyl at a level that they initially believed were inappropriate and not for legitimate medical purposes.
Goddamn.
I will say, it seemed at first to me like the hospital acted very quickly to stop more people from being affected once they found out. But if he is guilty, then it does mean that they waited for 35 people to be affected. And 35 is a crazy number.
That's a lot. Yeah.
So if there is a legitimate case here and he was murdering patients, they did not stop it fast enough.
Facts.
And my understanding is that in each of these cases, there was always a nurse who did the injecting, a pharmacist who approved the orders, and there was never a red flag.
Well, there were several red flags. They just flew past him.
Yes, correct. They were never like triggered for the hospital. And it seems like the nurses and pharmacists are always like, they kind of default to, well, I was following orders.
And that's not a good enough reason.
And it's like, okay, but at what point do you start questioning it? Right.
We disagree with you, friends.
Exactly.
About a month later, Ohio State Police got involved. So the State Medical Board of Ohio voted on January of 2019 to suspend his license. And he was indicted in June of 2019 after turning himself into authorities. And then he posted $1 million bail that same month, which if you could just post $1 million bond, like immediately no, like you're guilty.
No. Yeah.
I'm like, that is so much money.
What did you put up for collateral? Your yacht?
Literally,
Must be
like
fucking nice.
I was like, wow, that's a lot of money. But also, they
is.
don't just put up like that amount unless they have reason,
right,
to believe this.
Like $1 million bail is like, are you gonna run?
Yeah, because you probably should.
They made him turn in his passport too.
Oh yeah,
Right.
because he's about to. Yeah, he's gonna bebop out of there.
Right.
The investigation found that the doses, which range from 500 to 2,000 micrograms, were designed to hasten the death of patients who were being treated, Ron O'Brien said. In addition, it's important to note that this dose was in addition to other medications that he was prescribing. So even at the 500 micrograms, like we've already talked about, that can sound like a relatively small amount, even though it's not.
Mm-hmm.
That could have very well killed patients. A potentially lethal dose of fentanyl is 2 milligrams, which is 2,000 micrograms, according to the DEA. So, like, that is a crazy amount of fentanyl.
Right. And the woman who got 20 vials got 2,000 micrograms, like a known lethal dose, according to the DEA. Basically, like we said earlier, just like a plug inside our podcast for our own podcast. We talked about this in the opioids episode, but a dose about the size of 5 grains of table salt is enough fentanyl to kill an adult. So it's super easy to OD on this stuff, I think. Also, I spoke to a doctor who chose to remain anonymous while prepping for this episode, and he sent me this end-of-life pain management guide from the Cleveland Clinic, and it recommends in this guide that you start low on any kind of opioid. For fentanyl, it was 100 micrograms, and you consistently monitor the patient's pain level. And then only when the patient responds saying that they are still in pain would you go higher than that. And the highest dose it recommends is 200 micrograms. So if that's true, then he was giving 10 times the highest allowable dose. And this is for like end of life care. So when I read that, I came around to the idea.
Oh, yeah.
That this was, I don't think personally anymore. I don't think it was an accident. I don't think it was, just like a misguided mistake. I think he did this intentionally.
I mean, if he didn't want to murder them, he did a really great job of it on accident.
I don't know.
For a lot of times.
I can't say for sure that he wanted to murder them, but I think that he knew it would end their life.
And that's on period.
The doctor that I spoke with said that prescribing a dose of like 2,000 micrograms is, and I use the word quote, like he used this word, indefensible.
Oh, yeah.
Period.
I have found no one, nowhere, that says 500 micrograms of fentanyl is an appropriate use of fentanyl for treatment of someone being taken off a ventilator.
So let's just run down the timeline really quick. Mm-hmm. The hospital originally identified 35 potential victims who he had ordered excessive doses of fentanyl for around January 2019. In June of that same year, the hospital paid millions of dollars in settlements in 7 different cases to families of patients who had loved ones who died. After families began filing civil lawsuits for wrongful death of fucking course against the hospital because they wrongfully had loved ones that died.
Right.
One of the suits that was settled involved the death of 73-year-old Sherry White, who died in 2014 after receiving 2 100 microgram doses of fentanyl within 16 minutes of each other, which what?
That's so close. Yeah.
It's so much. And though her death certificates state that she died of toxic shock associated with a UTI.
Right.
20 of those cases have been filed altogether.
And see, that's where you were talking about earlier, the fact that he gave them this stuff and then they died. So they may have had other things going on. And it's possible that an autopsy where you knew this was happening would have led to different findings, I think, too.
Absolutely.
Because if they, you don't do an autopsy probably on someone who is in the hospital in the ICU at 73 and passes away. If they have other stuff going on, maybe you don't even do an autopsy. But if you know that, someone in the hospital is poisoning patients,
yeah,
then your cause of death might be different in the autopsy, right?
Yeah.
That's my thoughts.
Mount Carmel's president and CEO Ed Lamb said at the time of the investigation's conclusion that regardless of the reason the actions were taken, we take responsibility for the fact that the processes in place were not sufficient to prevent these actions from happening, which honestly, good job doing that.
Yeah.
And then he said, we're doing everything to understand how this happened and what we need to do to ensure that it never happens again. And that's ultimately all I ever want from an institution where a mistake is made.
Yeah.
We take responsibility for the fact that the processes in place were not sufficient to prevent these actions from happening.
I'm wondering if this is the CEO that ended up retiring, because if it was, it's kind of unfortunate because it sounds like he, I don't know what he was doing. It sounds like he was trying to do the right thing, though.
Right.
So Husel was originally indicted on 25 counts of murder, with each alleging that he, quote, purposely caused the death. So I think that's going to be the hardest part, is proving that he purposely caused it.
I wish they had just taken the stance of did he know that this was a lethal dose?
Yeah. And the judge did give he gave the jury the option to give him a lesser sentence than intentional homicide murder. Mm-hmm. He's you can find him guilty of something else, basically,
yeah,
manslaughter or whatever they normally give doctors. Because in cases like this, I feel like murder is not super common. So he gave them the option to do that, which I thought was really interesting. So we're still on the timeline. July of 2019, Mount Carmel Hospital goes on to fire 23 employees. Its CEO resigns after the investigation begins. Fast forward to October of 2020. Husel's defense team files a motion to have the murder charges against him thrown out. The judge denies that. Duh. So this case has been going on and off since 2019. Fast forward to this year in January, the prosecution then files a motion to drop 11 of the murder charges. And from what Jess and I could tell when we were both doing our reading, they dropped the charges for patients who were given lower doses, under 1,000 micrograms. So he's still standing trial for the other 14 counts of murder.
And I think they did that. I mean, kind of what we were just saying, he could probably explain away the reasoning for that quantity, but it's that the more that it's okay.
Right. There are 14 that were higher than that bar.
But in doing so, the prosecution dropped 11 of the murder charges, which is the people who are going after him, right? And that leaves victims and victims' families who are not going to be able to really seek and have justice.
Right.
The families seem to believe they're being robbed of that. And I think, that's understandable.
Agreed.
Nicole Thomas, who's the daughter of Jan Thomas, said it doesn't make sense. It's not enough. It was enough to kill her, but it's not enough to prosecute him. And then Sean Thomas, who's the son, Jan Thomas's son, said it's so shocking that this is happening. I'm completely shocked and disappointed in the whole judicial system. Every time this is covered, she dies again. Every time her name flashes in the story, it's back in the news. And now to hear that 11 of the cases were dismissed, she is dying all over again.
It just rips the wound right open again. So it hurts a little bit more this time.
I honestly can't imagine. That's devastating.
Yeah.
So we wanted to share some of the victims' stories and add some words directly from the victim's family. So we would be sharing their words and their experiences. Chris Allison, who is one of the wives of the victims, said,
he says to me, I'm 99.9% sure there is no brain activity, that he is brain dead. His organs are shutting down. I'd like to give him something to make him comfortable.
Troy Allison, when he came into the hospital, was 44. He came into the ER via ambulance for shortness of breath. While he was in the ER, he suffered from multiple heart attacks. So they intubated him, took him to the ICU. He's put on life support. Dr. Husel was the physician on call. And then he basically told the patient's wife, your husband's organs are all shutting down. He's brain dead. I'm going to give him something to make him more comfortable. And then he was given this lethal dose of fentanyl and he died. Months after her husband's death, she said she got a call from the hospital saying that Troy Allison, her husband, has been given an overdose, receiving 1,000 micrograms of fentanyl from Husel.
It just wasn't adding up. They said they're going to give him something to make him comfortable, then fine, give him some. He didn't say, I'm going to give him 1,000 micrograms of fentanyl and he'll be dead before you enter the room. That would have been a different conversation.
Several other of the deaths happened the same day.
He said, I can promise you that he will not suffer and he'll go quickly.
Did they tell you that Jim was brain dead?
They said he was in complete organ failure.
That's what they told us.
That's basically what they told us too.
Yeah.
Right, because fentanyl is all over the news at this point. People know the name of that drug and they would have been alarmed at that quantity. That's important that he wasn't being truthful. He wasn't saying the entire thing.
100%.
And then I also read that in some cases, families were encouraged by hospital staff or Husel himself to change the status of their loved ones to DNR, do not resuscitate.
I saw that too.
And that is so sick and absolutely terrible. And it feels and I wonder if the hospital in some ways is responsible because of more than just Husel doing that. Because it seems like other people should be on trial too, basically.
Yeah, I completely agree with this. Based on all of the firing they're doing and the payout settlements, I think the hospital has to take some of the liability here. And I will say the Mount Carmel, I
don't know. Candy.
The Mount Carmel Health System said in a statement that it will continue to implement meaningful changes throughout their system to ensure events like these never happen again.
Sadly, our investigation revealed that some of our colleagues did not meet our standard of care. The actions that created this tragedy were instigated by this physician and carried out by a small number of good people who made poor decisions. They ignored the safeguards we have in place.
State Health Department investigators apparently also found that the hospital lacked appropriate safeguards to prevent this kind of excessive dosing. So, investigators have found them to be at fault, is what I read.
Agreed.
At least partially.
So, Lisa Hayes is another family member of a victim. Ryan Hayes is her brother, and he was one of the victims, and she found her brother actually, and he was unresponsive. And the health records showed that he had suffered cardiac arrest, and he was taken to Mount Carmel on April 2nd, 2017, where he did stabilize, but Ryan did end up passing away a few days later at the age of 39, which is so young. So records revealed that he received 2,000 micrograms of fentanyl along with 10 milligrams of the pain reliever diluted, and 2 milligrams of Versed, a drug used to cause drowsiness before surgery, which is obviously...
That's a lot of drugs, I think.
Of drugs.
So now we're going to talk about the jury and the trial itself, especially as we find ourselves at the end of the 4th day of jury deliberations. Hopefully they'll have something decided soon. Like we said, they're still deadlocked. So in February of 2022, this year, they picked a jury of 7 women and 5 men to decide Husel's fate. So far, they have heard from investigators, medical experts, Mount Carmel employees, executives, and the prosecution has been trying to outline that the fentanyl doses that he prescribed were, quote, designed to hasten the death of the patients that were being treated, and that it is still murder to kill a dying person.
Yeah.
Assistant Franklin County Prosecutor David Zayen also told the jurors that even if the patient's underlying medical condition actually caused their deaths, he believes that the fentanyl doses hastened their deaths or made them happen faster, essentially. A couple of experts in the field of end-of-life comfort care said that no one else in end-of-life care is giving the amounts of fentanyl that Husel prescribed, which to me was a very convincing argument. Yeah. If no one else is doing it and you should have known that it was not the right thing to do, then you did it on purpose.
Yeah, bingo. Bingo.
Because the doses he was prescribing were up to 20 times higher than the recommended dose.
Straight to jail.
Yeah, I think, well, we'll see.
3 other ICU doctors from Mount Carmel Hospital also testified that their typical practice was to use morphine for pain rather than fentanyl, and to give the drugs in smaller doses at specific intervals of time rather than large dose all at one time, which makes sense. Yeah. Why are you giving... What are you doing?
That's another really convincing argument. And that's one of the things that really pulled me over to the he's guilty side.
Yes.
Is if other ICU doctors are like, this is not how we do these drugs.
Yeah, straight to jail. Straight to jail.
Several of the 20 total wrongful death civil suits also allege that healthcare providers, including Husel, ignored, quote, excessive painkiller warnings from the electronic medical system, or that the system failed to work in the first place. So after Mount Carmel fired Husel in December, the healthcare provider updated its guidelines that a usual adult dose of fentanyl should be between 25 and 100 micrograms, according to the Ohio Department of Health Inspection report. So they did update this after he was fired. They were like, we need to put a checks and balances system in place.
Yeah.
But, like, why wasn't that there in the first place? So he's facing additional wrongful death suits. 8 of them have been settled, and I think those were the suits where the hospital settled out of court in most cases. I think I read somewhere that he's facing 19 additional wrongful death suits.
I mean, sounds right.
So they're just piling on top of each other. Pile the suits up.
Yeah.
He shortened her life. He took her right to choose her death away. And I just feel that Mount Carmel should have stopped him long before this happened. It looks and appears to me you had a rogue doctor, you had a breakdown in protocols in the hospital.
Were any of these people capable of recovering? So here's an update. Yes. It seems like the hospital is claiming that at least 5 of them might have gotten better. Like, their prognosis was not so bad that they were definitively going to die when this happened to them. Which I think, for some reason, that makes it so much worse to me. It sounds bad, but if someone is going to die, That's awful. You don't get to choose to kill them. You don't get to hasten that along. But also, if someone has the potential for recovery and you kill them.
If his intent was not to cause them death, his intent was then to do what? What was his
comfort care? Comfort care. I think it's important that everyone watching this understand that the patients that we're talking about are end-of-life patients. These people were being kept alive primarily due to the equipment in the hospital.
Like, this whole thing is sick to me. Like, I thought he was guilty immediately. Like, read one article. I was like, yeah, you were, because you don't make 35 plus mistakes.
Not
like
one
this.
On top of another. You surely don't.
You don't do mistakes that end in patients dying over and over without, like, meaning to.
Right.
Like, you're not an idiot.
Right.
Like, you're a doctor.
Doctor of the year.
Yeah, doctor of 1 year. Probably not this year.
Probably going to miss out on that award this year, sir.
Probably.
I have not read anything that makes me think this is okay.
Right. Husel's defense attorney, Jose Baez, has basically said that nothing has been proven beyond a reasonable doubt. I mean, he's incorrect in my opinion, but okay.
Fair.
He might be a legal professional, but whatever. He thinks that the police didn't really investigate and just relied on the hospital's internal investigation, which is what originally pointed the finger at Husel. He also says that Husel never tried to hide the doses he was giving to patients, which is actually true. So 1 point on your board.
Yeah, but also it's like, maybe you didn't hide it because you're dumb.
Or maybe you didn't hide it because you're a narcissist and you think like you are in charge and no one's going to call you on your bullshit.
That's a much better way of saying what I was trying to say. Narcissist, if you see his face.
Oh, yeah.
This is maybe whatever. I'm like armchair psychologist-ing. He looks like a narcissist to me. I would not be surprised if he was.
No. I mean, I say I read the article, but I actually just looked at a picture of him and I was like, straight to jail.
Guilty.
So both sides seems to agree that there's no specific maximum dose of fentanyl, which is actually a problem.
Agreed.
And that there's no maximum dose that's like accepted for comfort care, which like needs to be addressed like immediately.
Yeah.
His closing arguments also included the fact that the nurses who took the stand in this case, all of whom had lost their jobs in addition to Husel, should be mad at him if they thought it was his fault. But they all spoke very, very highly of him as a physician, and they think the hospital is making him the scapegoat for bigger systemic failures, which I don't think the hospital is making him a scapegoat if they're paying out lawsuits.
Right.
I think that the hospital said something's wrong here. They called in all of the authorities and they said, now you do it.
100%. I totally agree.
And I don't think people who also lost their job are the best judge of character here. That means
you weren't the best judge of character when you pushed those 20 doses of fentanyl.
You were literally taking 20 vials of fentanyl and shoving them into someone's arm. So I don't.
You were like, sounds good. 20 vials, roughly like a gallon of orange juice seems normal.
They worked with him. So at the end of the day, they also trusted him. So he's telling them what to do and they're doing it,
right,
which is not okay. But I don't like them taking the stand. I'd be like, as a jury person, I'd be like, okay, I don't trust you,
right,
friend.
The doctor that I talked to about this episode was like, I bet he's like a very smooth talker.
100%.
People liked him. People trusted him.
Yes, people liked him.
He's the doctor of the year. He worked at the Cleveland Clinic. Like, people thought that they were lucky to be working with him. They called him muscular in their description of him, for God's sakes. Like, people had a crush on him.
Yeah, and he was attractive, like.
Yeah.
According to these people.
Right. They're like, you're hot, tell me what to do.
I think he looks like a serial killer.
I think he also looks like, this is so weird, and maybe it's just because I know that he's maybe a serial killer. I think he looks like he has cold, dead shark eyes.
100%.
So, the judge denied the defense's motion for a mistrial. The jury has now been deliberating for 4 days as of Monday. Like I said, as of today, they were deadlocked at lunch. Beep boop bop. So, Husel responded to this by filing a defamation lawsuit against Mount Carmel. Why can't I say that word?
Mount Candyland.
Mount Candyland Hospital.
It's Do the Hustle of Mount Candyland.
Mount Candyland. All of the bandages are made of fruit ribbon, fruit by the foot.
That sounds good.
And all the splints are made of candy
cane. Yeah.
Okay. In the suit, he claims that Mount Carmel and Lamb and Trinity Health Corporation made false statements and defamatory statements to the media. He claims, and I quote, he has suffered the most egregious case of defamation in Ohio's history. So, okay, you're a narcissist. Bring the drama. I see you.
Right.
The lawsuit goes on to ask for, quote, far greater than $50,000 in damages, along with his attorney fees and punitive damages, and then breach of contract, because allegedly, if he's hit with a malpractice suit, his hospital's supposed to pay his attorney fees, and they're not paying for those, obviously, because they fired him.
Mm-hmm.
So he's saying, give me money, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And then he says that these patients all died of natural causes after full life support was removed. I do understand what he's saying, where he was removing, in most of these cases, life support.
But I think he killed him.
However, 20 vials, that's all I feel like you need to say. And actually, this is so interesting. As the prosecutor was telling the jury about what was happening, he was apparently taking fentanyl vials one by one and lining them up on the jury box so they could tell how many had to be injected.
Yeah, I think that's great.
Isn't that such a good visual? Like, so smart.
I was just thinking, like, in the true crime Netflix show that's definitely going to come out about this, TM,
we're producing it.
I was like, oh, they should have done that. But, like, I did see that, too, that he was, like, lining it up, because one vial is a lot. Like, if you think about what it is, that's a lot of drugs, no matter what drug it is.
It's a very stunning visual. And I think in the show that we're producing about this,
right,
it's going to be called Cold Dead Shark Eyes, the story of William Do the Hustle. TM.
Yeah, TM immediately.
We're definitely going to have that scene where he lines up the vials, because it does make a strong case. So this case, the defamation lawsuit, is on hold pending the actual case that matters, which is going on now, his murder case.
Dr. Husel, do you have any answers as to why?
No comment.
Is it fair that you're walking out of jail today?
No comment again. Sorry.
Do you have anything you can say to the dozens of families who are hurting right now?
And that's what we know about that.
Yeah, we'll keep you updated when we get the news.
As soon as we know something, we will definitely post an update about this. I suspect it's going to come out tomorrow, and we're going to have to do some last-minute shuffling of, like,
yeah.
Either way.
I mean, he's guilty, but he might be found not guilty, but he did it.
Yeah. I mean, I think so, too. When Jess and I first started talking about this episode, I wasn't sure. And then I read about 20 kajillion articles, and I was like, okay, I'm good. He did it.
He did it. Yeah. I mean, he did prescribe the fentanyl.
Oh, I mean, he straight up did. Yeah.
So, like, at minimum, it's negligence.
Right.
At maximum, it's homicide.
Agreed. Thanks for listening. We hope you liked this episode. We hope it helped you form an opinion about this case.
And we hope you agree with us. If you don't talk to us. Send us a DM if you have a recommendation for an episode. We love them. So like and subscribe us. You want to review us, that'd be nice. We love that.
Yeah, we love a good review. Good for the podcast. Good for our ego.
Yeah. That's all I got.
And don't forget, malpractice makes perfect.
Bye.
Bye-bye.